Yesterday's video really didn't age well. I was very proud of it, so I was happy to upload it. I think the video turned out really well, and if you do like those cut commentary style videos, then let me know, as always, either down in the comments on social media and everything like that. But there was a little snippet in that video that I just want to play for you. I'm going to say it, could jinx it, something could go wrong, because things always tend to go wrong. But we're going to install broadband on the 7th of May, and sooner than I could have possibly imagined, it came to fruition. Could jinx it, something could go wrong, because things always tend to go wrong. Now, as I mentioned in that video yesterday, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, these are first world problems, and I think one of the ways that I'm dealing with this and what I'm about to tell you, and everything that I've been through in the past year or so, is I put it into perspective and know that in the grand scheme of things, especially with the way the world is right now, it's not the end of the world, and hence I am remaining fairly positive. But let me start from the beginning, tell you what's happened up until now and what has changed since yesterday's video and what that means. Because if you care about me even a little bit, or the videos that I make, or the content that I've promised you, then you're going to want to listen up, because it does change things. We can take this back even further, okay? So when I was living with my parents, I had never moved out, okay? We're going back a couple of years now. I was living in this house, and I finally installed my own personal internet connection that was business broadband through Virgin Media. It was super fast. I loved it. That was back in the Fortnite days when I was uploading instantly update related content. My internet was good. I was streaming. Everything was just amazing. It was incredible. And then came the stage of me moving out of this house with my now ex-girlfriend into an apartment. And I moved into the apartment, and despite the broadband checker saying that I could get good internet in that area, that specific building, I really couldn't. I had to use Talk standard internet connection, which meant the upload speed was anywhere from about 0.1 to maybe 1 megabytes per second, which meant no live streaming, for one, and every video that I uploaded from January 2019, from when I was filming there, to October 2019, took me hours. I had to upload the videos overnight, every single night. I'm surprised my PC didn't blow up, but the internet was awful. Now, in August of 2019, I decided, to move out of the apartment. Of course, I couldn't stay there for another year. Although it was a lovely apartment, I couldn't live with that internet. So my ex-girlfriend and I, we decided on a house, and from August the 23rd, I was paying monthly rent on that house. And then in September, I had an engineer out from Virgin Media to go and check out the house, and instead of installing internet at the house that day, they couldn't, because apparently when the new driveway was paved for that house, they paved over some essential wiring. So they had to dig up the driveway. That's what was going to happen. I'd need permission from the landlord. There was that whole thing, and that was going to be very frustrating, because it's very difficult to orchestrate that sort of thing. Okay? And then, I think a day after, the engineers came around and said that they had to do that. Obviously, my relationship with my ex-girlfriend broke down. We don't need to go into that and why, but things happened, and our relationship was no more. I had to leave her. And that meant that I was heartbroken. I was in a very dark place, and all of a sudden I had a massive, empty 3-bedroom house. And now, thinking about it, I'm like, man, I wish I stayed there. It's such a nice house. I'd have an internet connection, and I'd be loving life. I'd be alone, to be fair, in self-isolation and quarantine, so I'm grateful to have my family in this situation I am now, but I'd be all alone. And back then, in September, when I was heartbroken, I couldn't think of anything worse. So I came back to my parents' house, and finally, by the end of November, they were able to find a new tenant for that house, and I could then stop paying rent. So I paid 3 months of rent on that house, £1,200 a month. Why not just say it? 3 months of that rent on that house, and I never even lived there, which is kind of frustrating. I also bought a bed for that house that I then had to take down. It's now in the garage. So I spent a lot of money on this house, and I never ended up living there, but that was fine. And I started looking for a new house, because going into the new year and Christmas, I had a great time with my family, and mentally I started to recover from the whole situation a little bit, and I started feeling a little bit better about myself. So it was time to look for new houses, and you guys may know this situation and this story. And then my mum sends me a link to a house that is ideally located. It's perfect, very close, about a 5-minute walk away from my old apartment, but it's in a house on the ground, so internet is much more viable. My other apartment was in a block, and it was 4 floors up, so yeah, internet up there wasn't great. But this was a house on the ground, right in the town centre, perfectly located. And I looked up the broadband speeds, and sure enough, you can get fiber. That's what the broadband checker said to me. So I thought, great, this is a house I'm going to go for. And in the middle of March, as you would have seen if you follow me on Instagram, on pickapixel YT, you would have seen that I got the keys to the house on the 14th of March. And this was phenomenal news. Phenomenal news. And I called Virgin Media and I said, what can we do with internet? What can you give me? And initially they said to me, oh, we can't do that at that house. And I was crushed. I was so crushed because I thought I was finally going to get good internet to upload videos quicker and mainly stream. That's mainly why I want to do this, to get my good internet back. But they said they couldn't do it and I was crushed. But that only lasted for a couple of hours because I then got a phone call back a couple of hours later from a different person saying that they actually could give me the internet I wanted, and I was gassed. So we finally discussed everything. I paid the deposit for the installation and all that stuff, and I was buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing. And then the global pandemic hits and I don't hear anything back. I was supposed to hear from an order manager within a week or two. A month had passed and I had heard nothing. This was a couple of weeks ago in the middle of April. So I contacted them and I said, listen, you keep saying you'll contact me in a few weeks. You keep saying you'll contact me in a few days. I don't care if it takes a long time to be contacted. Just please tell me the right time frame. At which point they pushed me to priority. A day after I sort of lodged my complaint and spoke with someone on the phone, I got a phone call while I was out running, and there was an engineer at the house, and he basically wanted access to the house. I gave him the code to the gate, and it was all fine. He went and had a look, and that was that. Later that day, I got a text message from Virgin Media saying that they were going to install my broadband on the 7th of May. You're all caught up. I said this in yesterday's video, and I didn't know, but 7th of May was going to be the installation date, and I didn't know the work that they had planned to do, and Virgin Media never told me that they were planning on doing any work. They almost kept it under wraps. They did a site survey, ascertained that they probably need to dig up some ground to do the work, but they never told me. So the next morning, I got an email from my estate agent saying that one of the owners of the car park right outside my house has noticed some markings on the ground. You know when engineers spray markings and give them essentially a guideline so they know what they're working with? They had done that outside the house, and I wasn't aware of this, but the estate agents made me aware of it, and this meant that it looked like Virgin Media were going to have to dig up some ground, and therefore, so as not to be vandalizing the owner's property, I had to get permission from the owners to make sure that the works can take place. So after many months, I had trouble with Virgin Media back in September. They wanted to do a bunch of extra stuff. I had trouble now. They finally agreed an installation date, but it requires some digging. But I thought, you know what, that's fine, because they repair the dig that they do on the day. They just install the internet, everything can go back to normal. And that is where I was left with yesterday's video. I was going to get, my internet installed. I think when I recorded yesterday's video, I didn't know that they were planning on digging necessarily, because they never told me that. It was my estate agent that did. But they do need to do that. And now I have to get permission from the owners. And I thought, okay, I'm sure I can swing this. Having an internet connection is absolutely essential. But, and I understand why, obviously in the moment I was very heated, I was very emotional, but I think most of the owners have shown concern and contested the works, so essentially they're not allowing it to go ahead. I'm not allowed to have Virgin Media go into the car park, dig up a bit, sort out the wiring and put it back. They won't let me do that, and that's their own right. It's their property, and to my knowledge they did spend some money recently sort of redoing it, renovating it, maintaining it, all that sort of thing. So I do get their concern. So that means that I finally had a date for Virgin Media to give me the super fast internet that I wanted, and now it can't happen. And this means, obviously, since March, I've been paying rent on another empty house that I'm not living in, just like last year, and there's no point me moving my stuff in there, because I did have a removal van booked for the 31st of March, but I decided not to do that because what's the point when I can't live there without internet? So I'm going to have to basically contact Virgin Media and say, you can't dig, so you can't install the internet. And I was told that apparently BT can, they service the majority of the houses in this little almost gated community. So I contacted BT to see what they could offer me, and out of all of the houses on the complex, my one is the only house not on their database. So they can't run any tests without sending an engineer out. They know all of the other houses' details except mine. I have no idea why, but it's just typical, isn't it? Because that's, you know, this last year has been pretty rough, and it's just typical that my house wouldn't be in their database. So that would mean that they'd have to send an engineer out. And I thought, okay, that's fine. I mean, Virgin Media, they sent an engineer out. They said they had to dig, but BT probably won't have to do that because all the other houses are already connected to BT. So this is fine. They can send an engineer out. But unlike Virgin Media, BT seem to be more affected by these lockdown measures, or they're choosing to not send out engineers because of the lockdown. So their plan is to be able to start sending engineers out in the month of June. So I have to cancel my 7th of May appointment. So May is just going to be dormant, no connection, rent, no living, all that stuff. Frustrating. And then in June, potentially BT can send out an engineer, install a standard broadband, and then upgrade it to fiber. So this has been pretty tough. But I'm trying to remain positive, and it looks like that in June, because obviously they're going to have a lot of people to deal with. I don't expect them to be at my doorstep on June the 1st, because that's just not how it works. But hopefully in June they send out an engineer and then are able to install a standard broadband and then are able to upgrade to fiber. That's what I'm most worried about, is that they install a standard broadband and then for some weird reason, just for some typical reason, despite their website saying I did a check on the addresses in the houses next to mine, they can get fiber broadband. So mine should be able to once they install the standard line, but just I'm worried that they're not going to be able to. So worst case scenario, June, maybe July, they send out their engineers. It all depends on when the lockdown measures are eased. And then they can install a standard line and they can't upgrade it to fiber. That's the worst case scenario, in which case I wouldn't be able to stream, but at the very least, I'd be able to move into my house and get my own space. So hopefully what happens is, in June, the engineer goes to my new house, installs the standard line, upgrades to fiber, then I contact the removal company and move all this into the house. And I guess maybe a good estimated date to start is July, but then maybe more stuff will have to get sorted out and it'll be August, and it would just be an entire year, an entire saga before I can finally feel settled. But as you guys know, I am ever the optimist. I really, really am. It got to me last week. I had a cry. I had emotions. I had anger. I had everything. I had a lot of anger yesterday because I was on the helplines and I called a line for Virgin Media. They sent me to another line. That line sent me back to the first line. And it's tough. It really is quite difficult. And I think the lockdown is just emphasizing everything. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are feeling that. You know, you're stuck inside for the most part. Mentally, that really takes a toll on you. And like my brother was saying as well, he said his world's never felt so small. And I agree. You can't see the people you care about unless you live with them. You can't do a lot of the things that you love to do. And that is why, in a way, despite all the negativity that's happened to me, first of all, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family's health. And I'm very grateful for you lot. Very grateful and very blessed. So, yeah, today's been a productive day. I'm going to try and stay positive because now that I know the score, I know that I can't get the connection in May that I so happily exclaimed in yesterday's video. I'm aiming for June with a different provider, and that's okay because things are stressful. Tax returns and everything's happening at this time of year. Money is an issue. The future of YouTube is a scary thing for me. I just want to do what I enjoy. But you know what? I said it yesterday, and in the grand scheme of things, I think I'm okay. I think everything will be all right. So that's the update. You know, since August last year, I've been trying to have a property to live in with internet. And maybe in June, I'll have achieved that goal. And when I do, I hope you guys are there with me. So that's going to do it for this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe today to join the Pixel Army. I've been Pixel. You've been awesome. And I will see you in the next video very soon.